Welcome to the Harmony in a Hurry podcast. We are Caroline and Anna, mindfulness enthusiasts, exploring ways to weave a little bit of mindfulness into our busy routine. Today we are talking with Pru Chapman. As the founder of Owners Collective, she has helped over 15,000 founders launch, leverage, and lead their businesses. She's passionate about using businesses as a force for good, and her podcast One Wild Ride showcases forward-thinking founders who place people and planet on equal footing with profit and projections. Off duty, she loves nothing more than a spacious hike deep in the forest. We hope you will enjoy this talk to her. Welcome, Pru, to our Harmony in a Hurry podcast. We're so happy to have you here.
I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I love talking about all things mindfulness and mindset, so it's a good place to be.
Excellent. And so the first question that we normally ask our guests to get us started is, what does mindfulness mean to you and how do you incorporate it in your days?
Oh, big question to start with. But I think for me, really simply, is that mindfulness means presence. And for me, it means bringing presence to everything that I do. Now, of course, that is very ambitious of me to try and bring mindfulness to everything I do, but I do try and incorporate it wherever I can. So, into my work, into my home life, just being present in the moment. I feel like it's the most powerful tool to be present with what is exactly in front of us. It can be so easy for our minds to get whipped up into the past or into the future, but to actually be present in the body with the breath, be really present with what's going on at the time. That's my approach to mindfulness.
So then you just said that, your mind can get whipped up. So do you have any tools that you use quickly to bring yourself back?
That's a great question. I think I rely on bigger tools, like slower tools, to be honest. Something that I've incorporated that's been really powerful in my life over the past few years is actually morning pages. I find that is such a brilliant way to set up my day so that I am present in my body, in my mind, not in the past, not in the future, but right there. And those morning pages, I just sit down with a cup of tea first thing in the morning and I write 3 pages. That's the goal of anything that's on my mind. But it really helps me make sense of all of the things that are going on, how I feel about them, and maybe why they're happening. It does take me about half an hour. It's a little luxury in my morning, but I do find that that really drops me into the presence of the day, making sense of what's been and what might be coming, but also into the actual moment.
Mm-hmm. And I guess it also helps you see where your mind is at any given moment and drop off all the things that maybe don't need to be swirling around all the time.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's so easy to get whipped up into the concept of not being mindful throughout our day. I mean, I know for me, sometimes I can get to the end of the day and think, what on earth happened? Sometimes you can just go days and days without actually stopping to process what has happened in that day, what actually happened in my life. Like, it's quite phenomenal. If you don't have mindfulness practices, then just how much of life can literally sweep by without giving it a second thought.
Mm-hmm. Can you give us a little bit about your background? How did your path take you to appreciate mindfulness?
That's a great question as well. Well, interestingly enough, I actually started off my professional career as a psychologist. And so quite early on, actually, no, I'd rewind a little bit before that, because even when I was at university and studying psychology, that was quite a big load. I was living out of home at the time. I didn't have any financial support, so I was working 3 jobs plus a full-time degree. And that was whipping me into all sorts of places. I actually started practicing yoga then. And with yoga came the practical practices of mindfulness. That was really helpful throughout university and into my professional career as well, which started off in psychology. And so, of course, there were mindfulness-based practices that I'd bring into my work there. And also I was living in Byron Bay at the time. So those two things went beautifully together. Mm-hmm. However, I didn't stay as a psychologist. There was a little niggle in me, by the time I got to practicing and I was an intern psychologist, I'd been doing it with university and the years of study. I'd been doing this for about 6 years and I just thought this isn't the path for me. So I ended up leaving and then I traveled the world and gave myself permission to do all of the jobs, which was really fun. There was a lot of adventures in that. But then I came back to Australia. I met my partner and I came back to Australia. I really had to ask myself what I wanted to do. I knew that I didn't want to go back to psychology, but that's really where my skill set was. So I decided to start coaching, and that started in leadership coaching and then went into business coaching. And I started running programs to help entrepreneurs and founders be their best selves to lead their businesses and their companies. So yeah, that was where psychology and business came together. And throughout every part of that journey, mindfulness has been a companion. It's always been in the background.
Mm-hmm. You focus a lot on businesses that have a purpose, or teach people to find their why, their purpose. How do you feel that finding your purpose and having mindfulness in your business helps the journey?
I think most importantly, it makes the journey more meaningful and sustainable. We live in a capitalist, patriarchal world that is always asking more of us. More sales, more clients, more social media posts, make more money, spend more money. When we embody practices of mindfulness that bring us back to our purpose, then it gives us that little bit of breathing space to decide, well, what of what I'm being told is for me, or what am I actually choosing is for me? That's what I really find with founders who embody practices. There is that pause in between what the world is saying and what their inner self is saying. So it can really keep them on purpose and allow them to make better decisions, not just in the moment, but for the long-term sustainability of themselves and their business as well. I do think that, purpose-led businesses and mindfulness, they're really entwined with one another.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have to say, there's a big gap in between, how you're talking about the drive, you've got to make more kind of like money business because you're like, I know I want to make a living through this, but I don't want to do it that way. Such a huge gap that needs to be bridged, and like incorporating the mindfulness would really help people, sort of marry that up. You know what I mean? Or
Yeah, and I think it also helps us kind of separate the wheat from the chaff. So it's the people telling you that you need to do more, like do more social media posts, make more reels, all of this more, more, more. Of course, they've got an agenda. They want you to buy for them. So I think when you do come back to mindfulness and you come back to, well, actually, this is what my long-term goal is, then it gives you the ability to choose, do I need to do more social media posts? Maybe not. Maybe I actually need to go and connect more at the farmers markets. Maybe I need to develop better relationships with my supply chain. Maybe I need to get a coach on board because I don't really understand the numbers in my business and I need to work on that aspect of my business. So again, it's like I do really feel like mindfulness is such a powerful tool in separating what we're being told and being really reactive to becoming proactive about what we actually need and what's best for us.
And you actually get more done because you're focusing on what I need to get done, why I need to get it done. And if you're present, you make probably less mistakes. You stop doing the multitasking that we all think is productive, but then it really isn't.
Yeah, and then I also think that you get to choose how you approach each job. So it's not necessarily what you're doing, but it's the way that you're doing it. I mean, all the things still need to get done. We can rush from paying bills to sorting out supplier invoices to writing an email newsletter. All of those things can just look like a big, long to-do list. But if we can bring this presence and mindfulness to it, then we can choose how we approach each of those tasks. So if we're paying a big tax bill, if you're not mindful, you just send it off. But I know even for me, if big tax bill comes in and I look at it and I'm like, wow, that means I made a whole bunch of money. And you know what? I'm really grateful that I've got the money in the bank to pay for that. And I'm really grateful that I have my business that allows me to do this work and make this money. And then all of a sudden that tax bill doesn't seem so bad. It's the act of bringing mindfulness and presence to that experience and choosing not just what am I going to do, but how am I going to do it, that completely changes that experience. So instead of being something awful paying the tax man, it actually becomes an experience and a practice of gratitude. I think that all of the tasks in business can be approached like that. The more that we bring to it, the more meaning, the more joy, the more purpose we can bring to all of those small tasks.
Which then probably expands into your private life as well. If you've had a joyful day at work rather than a stress day at work, you're probably a nicer person to be around.
Yeah, and I think this is commonly talked about in yoga as well. It's like when you get off the mat is when the real work starts.
Yeah.
And I think Mindfulness is exactly the same. So I can sit and write all the morning pages that I want, but if I rush into my day at a million miles an hour and don't bring any presence to it, there's no point in writing the morning pages, really. I think it's also good to be gentle with ourselves, because that's the practice of mindfulness as well. We're always off course. It's really about how often you can bring yourself back into mindfulness and back on course. That is when I see it being successful, for lack of a better word. It's totally normal to be off, and the practice is really bringing ourselves back to that mindfulness.
It's really like when you have the tools, put up in those separate moments when you can really go, oh, that's right, I've got these tools, and you bring yourself, and then you really notice the shift.
Yeah, exactly. One of the things that I incorporate in the day-to-day as well is I have my morning pages, but I usually try and have a sit down after lunch and meditate. It's kind of like the old siesta. I practice Vedic meditation. Sometimes I'll do the full 20 minutes, sometimes not, but just to drop back into the body and drop back into presence, and then it just resets me for the rest of the day. When I'm finishing work for the day, I like to have a little sit as well. It might even be 5 or 10 minutes just to drop back into my body, and then mindfully, how do I walk into my family life?
If you had to tell a business owner that is feeling overwhelmed, there's so much to do, I don't even have time for all this mindfulness stuff, what would you tell them it would be a good way to start with? Would you think the morning pages is something to start with, or?
I think there's a few things. This is something I always incorporate into my work because life is busy and very demanding. We live in a system that's demanding more from us all the time. The way I approach it is we want to get people away from being reactive to the world and instead being proactive. And so that reactivity, the first thing when I'm working with people that I always get them to do is to take their email app off their phone. That is just always the first thing. Like, take that email app off so that you start to compartmentalize your work. If you can start to take some of your social media apps off as well, like Instagram can be viewed on your desktop. Every time we take away those apps, take away those notifications, all those push notifications, like just even that word, push notifications, they're just being pushed at you constantly. So get rid of all of those things is the first thing that I'd say. Then what I would say is actually set up some rituals, practice mindfulness, because our default is to become reactive and busy. And it's really by setting up daily rituals, which is what will keep the practice in place of being mindful. It's like brushing your teeth. Unless we had that morning and evening ritual, we would forget about it. Life would become too busy and no one would be brushing their teeth. For me, that looks like morning pages. That's not for everyone. It might be when you drink your cup of tea in the morning, just do it really mindfully. Or every time you flick on the kettle, come back into your body and take a series of deep breaths. For some people, it's setting an hourly timer just to get up and walk around and feel their feet touching the earth. I think there's not one size that fits all, but I would say particularly for business owners who are really responsive to their phones, turn off all those push notifications, get the email and possibly even the social apps off your phone, and then set up rituals.
Because that's such a pull to try to answer, oh, that email I need to answer, or oh, look what someone sent me, let me see what it is. By the time you lift your eyes up, it's been 15 minutes and you haven't done anything for yourself.
Yeah, and I mean 15 minutes at a minimum, I would say. And also for people who are checking their email as the first thing when they wake up, you're just really reactive. You don't know what's going to be in that inbox. It could be good news, it could be really bad news, it could be some sort of chaotic fire that you need to put out for one of your clients. Like, you don't need to be seeing that at 5, 6, 7 in the morning. Just, be more proactive about where your attention is and how you spend your time.
Very good advice. I need to take that myself.
It will change your life. I tell you, when I start working one-on-one with clients, it's the first thing I get them to do is to take that email off. The next time we speak, they're like, it is life-changing. It's like I got my whole life back. It's like, yeah, because you're not reactive to what everyone else wants whenever they want it. It's a big change.
So can you tell us a little bit about your programs and how they help business owners?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess with my programs, they've really evolved over the past few years. And really what I'm trying to combat is this game of more. I've worked with a lot of business owners now. I think last count, maybe 17,000 through different programs. What I've been able to do over the years is really distill what is necessary to grow a profitable and sustainable business. Our programs are either 2 months or 3 months long. We have one for product-based businesses. We have one for service-based businesses. And it teaches you the essential framework for scaling, but without any fluff. So that's become really important to me because I don't want to spend any more time in front of my computer than I have to. I want my feet on the grass. I want to be swimming in the ocean. And And so again, coming back to that compartmentalizing my business, I mean, I'm hugely passionate about what I do, but I don't want it to take up 80 hours a week. I want it to take up 30 hours a week. The way I approach my programs for my clients is that I want them to make great money. Of course, that's really important, but I want them to make positive impact on the world as well and not burn out in the process. Like, it's a pretty simple offering. So in order to grow and scale, you don't necessarily need to add more and more. You might actually need to be doing less, but doing it better. And quite often that is the case. So when I'm working with businesses or they come into the program, that's the way that we're looking at their business. Like, what is actually the real magic that you bring to the world? And then how do we scale that in a sustainable and profitable?
You would also work with people that are like me, that have had, say, like their energy healing or whatever business for a few years, but the client base isn't enough so that I can step away from my nursing job. Do you also help people like that to scale up, but also look at how they can get everything out to the world so we can have a positive impact, but also transition over?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I've worked with lots of practitioners before, the way we always work is we build a profit model into your business. We look at what is your pricing and is that scalable, and is your pricing really on point? Because most business owners don't have their pricing right. And then what's the predictability of your models? You might just be doing one-on-one sessions now. What do we actually need to build out? Do you need a package of sessions? Could you be doing a one-to-many, like a group work situation? How do we make it, number one, profitable, and number two, predictable for you? Because if people are going to leave their nursing jobs, they need to know, okay, I need this much money in the bank to pay the rent, to pay the mortgage, to pay for all the things. Once we've got the model of your business right and we know what you're selling, who you're selling it to, and that it's scalable and profitable, that's when we look at what we need to put around it to get it out into the world to really make this thing grow. We work with big businesses and smaller businesses. Sometimes they're just scaling up and sometimes they're much bigger. We work with them in a more one-on-one capacity where it's like they've already got a pretty big thing going on, but it might have gone haywire and we need to bring it back in again. But that's what we're looking for with all businesses, is we want them really sustainable for the founder and we want them to be profitable and impactful.
Is there anything else that you would like to share that you think can help business owners?
I think the key takeaway, really, just since we've been talking, would be just ask in your business or even in your day, where are you in a reactive state and where are you in a proactive state?
Such great advice, and something we should all keep in mind in every aspect of our lives. Thank you so much, Pru, for taking the time to talk with me. That's it for today. Make sure you check the show notes to find out more about Pru's programs as well as her One Wild Ride podcast. Thank you so much. Until next time.